Shalom, family. Many have used the Gospels, declaring Christ as their primary source of the cleanliness of all animals to consume. This may be based on translations that may not be as clear as they may seem, or a simple misunderstanding of the body of the text. We will look at both Mark the 7th chapter and Matthew the 15th chapter to eliminate any confusion. Let's begin in Matthew 15 to establish the text. Matthew 15 and 11. Not that which goeth into the mouth defileth the man, but that which cometh out of the mouth, this defileth the man. Now, let's pick this story up in context from Mark the 7th chapter. Mark 7, 1 through 5. Then came together unto him the Pharisees and certain of the scribes which came from Jerusalem. And when they saw some of his disciples eat bread with defiled, that is to say, unwashed hands, they found fault. For the Pharisees and all the Jews, except they wash their hands oft, eat not, holding the tradition of the elders. And when they come from the market, except they wash, they eat not. And many other things there be, which they have received a hold, as the washing of cups and pots, brazen vessels, and of tables. Then the Pharisees and scribes asked him, Why walk not thy disciples according to the tradition of the elders, but eat bread with unwashed hands? Right away, we see the topic of this discussion is washing of the hands and the tradition of the elders, not food. Let's bounce back to Matthew. Matthew 15, 2 and 3. Why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders, for they wash not their hands when they eat bread? But he answered and said unto them, Why do you also transgress the commandments of God by your traditions? What tradition is Jesus talking about? What is the tradition of the elders that they are speaking of? The tradition of the elders is the tradition of the Pharisees, which found its start during the Babylonian captivity and the beginning of Talmudism. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls have cast much light on the formative period of the tradition of the elders, especially since new collections such as 1QS have indicated that sectarian as well as rabbinic Judaism was in the process of expanding the law. The Dead Sea Scrolls display the same types of refinements of the tradition as seen in the Talmud. Concern for the text of the 5 books of Moses, detailed instructions and offerings and tithes, ritual cleanliness and defilement, instruction concerning rituals and verification of current practices, the zeal with which this tradition was carried out to the last letter of its content is demonstrated by the community of Qumran itself, a religious commune existing under the harshest conditions of life. As with the rabbinical traditions, the Dead Sea Scrolls have a twofold purpose in view in their attempt to perfect the traditional system of the law. The Encyclopedia Britannica explains, Ezra the scribe, who according to the book of Ezra reestablished and reformed the Jewish religion in the 5th century BCE, began the search in the law to teach in Israel statutes and ordinances. His work was continued by the Sopharim, that's the scribes, who preserved, taught, and interpreted the Bible. They linked the oral tradition to scripture, transmitting it as a running commentary on the Bible. For almost 300 years, they applied the Torah to changing circumstances, making it a living law. They also introduced numerous laws that were designated words of the Sopharim by Talmudic sources. By the end of this period, Rabbinic Judaism, the religious system constructed by the scribes and rabbis, was strong enough to withstand pressure from without and mature enough to permit eternal diversity of opinion. The making of the Talmuds, the 3rd and 6th century, the expounders of the Mishnah were the Amorim, that is the interpreters, and the 2 Talmuds, the Palestinian or Jerusalem and the Babylonian, consist of their explanations, discussions, and decisions. Both take the form of a running commentary on the Mishnah. The Babylonian Talmud was compiled up to the 6th century. Some scholars suggest that the organization of the Talmud began early and that the successive generations of the Amorim added layer upon layer to previously arranged material. Again, Amorim refers to the interpreters or the teachers of the oral Torah. The Talmud consists of all kinds of laws of hand washing from the sages. But just to give you a couple so you can get an idea. The Eruvin 21b says, after Rabbi Yehoshua related to him the entire incident, Rabbi Akiva said to him, "Give me water so that I may wash my hands." Rabbi Yehoshua said to him, "The water that I brought will not suffice for drinking. How will it suffice for washing your hands?" He said to him, "What can I do for transgressing the words of the sages and eating without first washing hands? One is liable to receive the death penalty. And if so, it is better that I should die my own death by thirst rather than transgress the opinions of my colleagues who enacted that one must wash hands before eating." Mishnah Yadayim 2 says, water may be poured over hands out of any kind of vessel, even out of vessels made of animal dung, out of vessels made of stone, or out of vessels made of clay. Water may not be poured from the sides of broken vessels, or from the bottom of a ladle, or from the stopper of a jar. Nor may one pour water over the hands of his fellow out of his cupped hands, because one may not draw, nor sanctify, nor sprinkle the water of purification, nor pour water over the hands except in a vessel. And only vessels closely covered with a lid protect their contents from uncleanliness. And only vessels protect their contents from uncleanliness inside earthenware vessels. If he poured water over one of his hands with a single rinsing, his hand becomes clean. If over both hands with a single rinsing, Rabbi Meir declares them to be unclean until he pours a minimum of a quarter of a log of water over them. If a loaf of teruma fell on the water, the loaf is clean. Rabbi Yosef declares it to be unclean. Mishnah Yadayim 3. Hands become unclean and are made clean as far as the joint. How so? If he poured the first water over the hands as far as the joint and poured the second water over the hands beyond the joint, and the latter flowed back to the hands are clean. If he poured the first and second water over the hands beyond the joint and they flowed back to the hands remain clean. If he poured the first water over one of his hands and then changed his mind and poured the second water over both his hands, they are unclean if he poured the first water over both his hands. This is what Christ was dealing with. This was his beef with the sages. The traditions of the Talmud, not instructions of the Torah. Now, let's move to the next portion. Matthew 15 and 11. Not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man, but that which cometh out of the mouth, this defileth a man. Mark 7, 18 and 19. And he saith unto them, Are ye so without understanding also? Do you not perceive that whatsoever thing from without entereth into the man, it cannot defile him, because it entereth not into his heart, but into the belly, and goeth out in the drought, purging all meats? All meats. Look at my lesson on every living thing shall be meat for you, where we've established that unclean animals have already been eliminated as a food source. But let's look at how the NIV and modern Bible translators have rendered this verse. Mark 7 and 19, the NIV. For it doesn't go into their heart, but into their stomach, and then out of the body. In saying this, Jesus declared all foods clean. Now remember, the context of this exchange is washing of the hands and the traditions of the elder. Why would Jesus declare all foods clean? If you have any modern Bible translations with this phrase in it, you will notice that it's in parentheses. The Pure Cambridge text says a parenthesis is described as a word or sentence inserted into a passage to which it is not grammatically essential. So the all foods clean declaration is a later addition to this text added by translators, not the words of Christ. So, what defiles a man? James 3 and 10 says, Out of the same mouth proceedeth blessings and cursings. My brethren, these things ought not be so. Ephesians 5 and 4 says, Neither filthiness nor foolishness, talking nor jesting, which are not convenient, but rather giving thanks. James 3, 6 and 8 says, And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members that defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. Which takes us back to Mark 7. Mark 7, 20 through 24. And he said, That which cometh out of the man, that defileth the man. For within, out of the heart of men, proceedeth evil thoughts, adulteries, fornications, murders, thefts, covetousness, wickedness, deceit, lasciviousness, and an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All of these evil things come from within and defile the man. Matthew 12, 36 and 37. But I say unto you, that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give an account thereof in the day of judgment. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words shalt thou be condemned. Matthew 15 and 20. These are the things which defileth a man, but to eat with unwashen hands defileth not a man. Unwashen hands is the topic, not the cleanliness of food. I pray that this bless someone today. Shalom.